the lighting in games now is so awesome. We're in a real golden age of lighting. And I noticed recently playing Hitman with ray tracing on, stopped for a second and went, the lighting looks amazing.
You turn the flashlight on and you're exposed to a whole different set of horrors. Sometimes it's not better to see what's on the mantelpiece or in the fireplace. Sometimes shining a light isn't always the right thing to be doing.
I associate those games with that time of year because that's when I played them with fresh eyes. They become associated with a season, whether they mean to or not, through my experience of experiencing for the first time.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. I'm your host for today. I'm Jem and I'm here with my friends Alex and Matt. So before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gaming the system for some exclusive content, or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address, wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com.
As we move towards the longest night, the darkest day, the winter solstice, and the associated festive craziness, it would be an interesting time for us to talk about the use of light and dark in games to set the atmosphere, emotions, and stories, but also how the darker days and colder days impact the choices we make about the games that we play. Do we find ourselves craving games that are lighter and more airy and cozy, or do we lean towards darker and more meaningful games in the winter months? What does light and dark mean about endings and beginnings as we get into the new year and the little sparks of brightness that keep us playing? So I thought we could have a little chat about these games and the games that we're choosing to guide us through the longest nights of the year. Let's see where this takes us. Yeah, in a sort of semi-festive. We can't go too festive because Matt would leave. So this is as festive as it gets. Do you find that at this time of the year that your gaming habits change or adjust, however slight, to the seasons in any way?
For me, I think it's more to do with the fact that traditionally, winter has been a time for games I've most been looking forward to, or new games for me, because my birthday is in late November, and of course Christmas is a time when I would also be getting games or a new console or something like that, something gaming related as a present. So it's always felt like a time of year when there's something to really get my teeth stuck into and kind of get really settled down into and just spend time with. I think in terms of the types of games I play, I don't notice a change necessarily in genre. With so many games coming out all the time, I just tend to go with what I think is interesting at the time, or I've got some money for, or I have time for. Obviously, it depends on what kind of game I'm in, whether I want to finish the one I'm on at the moment. If the new one trumps that, and I'll just abandon the other game for a new one. But I know that this winter time, and particularly November into December, is typically a time where I'll have probably a new game to play, or more than one game, which will be a new experience for me. So it's always around this time of year, definitely.
It's a quieter time of the year for me work-wise. I definitely find that I game more in the winter because I'm indoors more. I don't feel like I'm missing out as much as in the summer when I sort of want to be outside and enjoying the weather. I would agree with you. I don't think that the genre that I choose changes very much. I think there's so many games out there that there's a big list and that I'm working my way through. Yeah, I have a vague memory that Christmas time was a time when big games were often released for the Christmas gifts, but I feel like that's something that we're not seeing as much these days. You tend to follow the AAA games a bit more closely than me. Would you agree with that?
This is actually a really good way into something that I found out about recently. There's a study that shows that gamers are very, very, very rarely buying brand new games anymore. And then I thought, oh, surely that can't be. And then I looked back on my gaming from this year, and I've played 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 brand new games. But the only one that I bought full price when it came out was Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I barely played any of that because it was a bit disappointing. And then all the other ones, I've either bought on Amazon, played them, and then returned them, so I haven't really bought them, or I played them on Xbox Game Pass. The time of massive releases, like timing themselves to come out in holiday periods, is long since dead, and especially since the focus on microtransactions. The biggest priority for companies now is coming out with seasonal content for their games. There just aren't any big, massive releases anymore. It's a shame.
Do you find yourself gravitating towards a particular genre in the winter?
I don't think so. My general instinct with gaming is for longer form, like long games, and I'm trying to practice playing shorter games as well. And over that 2-week period of just before Christmas, the week before Christmas and the week into the new year, that's the period where like everything is up in the air now.
Yeah.
And having a through line for that to have you, so you've got a long game on the go that, you know, could carry you through that entire period. And you know that you're going to get a bit of money so you can buy, like I've bought a ton of games, but they're all older games and on sale. So, and then Christmas will be a massive sale anyway, so you can go directly onto Steam and buy a load of smaller ones. And there's definitely that gamer trope of like you unwrap your new game and then you go and play in your room all day and don't speak to anyone. And that's what I encourage. That's what I encourage gamers to do over Christmas, because there is so much social pressure, especially around families, that can be very negative and unpleasant and unhealthy. And it being okay to go, right, you can go off and you can be on your own and play a game for a few hours, because you need to, even with family, especially with family, you need to be on your own sometimes, especially in heightened familial environments and situations like Christmas. You need that thing that just takes you completely out of the loop, that is all yours, and then you can do that and relax. Even if you get on the best possible way with your family, you need that rest.
It's one of the things that I bang on a lot about at the moment, is this idea of regulating your moods by taking time out and taking breaks as you need to, rather than pushing through until you melt down. It is really important to take those breaks. We've talked in the past about how good gaming is for giving you that time away from family. We've also talked about how much fun you can have gaming with family. Do check out our previous Christmas episodes, because they're still as relevant today as they were when we recorded them. And there's some really interesting tips and advice in there for surviving Christmas one way or another. So what I'm getting from you both is that the seasonal thing doesn't impact so much on your gaming choices.
It definitely feels like a cozier activity in the winter. If you're a console gamer, you can get a nice blanket, a cup of tea or hot chocolate, get your controller, sit all snuggled up and just spend some time. Whereas when it's the summer, you want to spend more time outside. So I definitely think it feels cozier, but the actual games that Matt and I, and perhaps yourself, play don't change quite so much in terms of what we're playing and how long we're playing for necessarily. Although in the winter there is a tendency to use the darker evenings to snuggle up and spend time gaming instead. There's definitely a difference between both seasons, but it's not necessarily reflected in the games that we play so much.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the use of light and dark in games, how cleverly that can be used to convey emotion and stories, intensity and all of those things. I wanted to leave this quite open for us today because it's a very broad topic in a lot of ways, but it is so important how light and dark affect us so intensely as human beings. It's interesting to look at how it's used in games. I'm currently playing Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and Clair Obscur actually means the way that colours can be used to create light and dark within painting and within art. And there's definitely a lot of that within the game, in this idea of sort of the hidden and out in the open, the good and the bad. And, there's lots of juxtapositions happening within it. I'm only halfway through the story. Matt's finished the game and is desperate for me to hurry up and finish it. I am working on it. But it was partly that made me think, yeah, this is a really interesting topic. So do you have any favourite examples of where light or darkness has been used cleverly in a game? Is there anything that springs to mind for you?
Alan Wake 2. Basically, the enemies that you fight are shadows and otherworldly monsters. So cool. In that, like, the first enemy that you fight is in a morgue, and the body gets up and attacks you, and all the lights go out apart from one, and you stay in that light. The shadows can't see you. If you shine your torch on them, it attacks them. You've got this thing called the clicker, which absorbs light from really bright sources, and then once you've absorbed it, the environment changes around it. So if there's a collapsed passageway and you have to get a light from somewhere else and bring it over to this place, and then it opens the way. The lighting in games now is so awesome. We're in a real golden age of lighting. And I noticed recently playing Hitman with ray tracing on, stopped for a second and went, the lighting looks amazing. Alan Wake's probably the most creative use of light. I love neon lighting as well, the lighting in Stray. I like when the developers are aware of the amount of creativity you can bring into play just with lighting. And it's just, it's another richness of game design that isn't always exploited. It is done incredibly well in Clair Obscur. And it is that Clair Obscur is literally clear, and you can see the clear or obscure. They're not binary things, they're the space between them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to think about. I've definitely played games which have a certain atmosphere to them. Particularly remember playing, I think it was either Rise of the Tomb Raider or Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the second and third of the most recent Tomb Raider trilogy. And the atmosphere in those is pretty dark and sort of grim and grungy. In the menu, it's raining outside the window you see on the screen, and it's quite dark, and there's a computer screen shining out into the office. It just gave me very dark, sort of sad vibes. It also happened to be playing on a bright summer's day, and it felt kind of weird. I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be playing this right now. And I did. Once I got into the game, I was in a different environment, but even just the menu, the way it was lit and the kind of dark, damp atmosphere that it was giving off, I was like, oh, I don't know if this really is matching the mood of the environment around me at the moment, outside around me. It's definitely interesting how you can you could choose to match the environment that's outside your window to the environment on your screen and see what impact that has. But it definitely can be jarring, I think, if it's the complete opposite from what you've got on your screen. It feels a bit strange sometimes. So definitely think it has an impact. When we think about the differences between seasons, a game that kind of covers all of them pretty well is more of a environmental feeling rather than a lighting type thing. But Astrobot has different themes of levels, and there's beach levels which are really summery and fun, and all the beachy music and summery feelings. And then you've got winter snow levels which are really Christmassy and wintry and loads of snow everywhere. And then jungle as well, and then cave type environment. So there's an environment to suit every sort of feeling, I think, there. So I guess it's definitely going for, you can play this game all year round and feel the vibes of the season if you really want to. There's spooky bits as well for Halloween. They're definitely tapping into holidays that are celebrated widely across the world. And I think that's really interesting to think about as well.
Another light I love is holograms.
Yeah.
Holograms are so cool, and they can be used so just impactfully because they don't have to be real. And so the holograms in the Horizon games, awesome. The holograms in Batman Arkham Knight, quite apart from the lighting in that game, be incredible as well. You have, rather than just an in-ear phone call, you have a video call hologram as well. It's so cool. It's Cyberpunk 2077. And one thing I remember thinking was really cool, in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, you had the ammo and your resources in a hologram on your gun rather than just being in a widget on the corner. It's just so cool and elegant and so seemingly simple. It's not just a texture, it's a light thing. And I still love that every time I see it. I have a real soft spot for holograms.
It's not a technology that they've really cracked in the real world yet, but they do have so much emotive response for people. I think for me, I was reminded of the game that my daughter played called Concrete Genie, where the aim is to whiz around a decrepit town and recolour it. And that's got neon lights and it's all very bright. There's a lot about bringing back light into the world, and it links to the little boy feelings about his world and his life and confidence, self-expression. And it's a very nice story. It won lots of awards. He creates these little monsters that he draws with his neon paints on the walls. You can make them look how you want, and they have different skills as a result of their shapes and their attributes. So there is this thing about bringing colour back to the world. I'm playing, I don't know if it's pronounced GRIS or GRIS, GRIS. It's about a girl who's experiencing grief. And it's effectively a platform about bringing colour back into the world. So there's definitely this light and dark and colour. We recognise the need for darkness. I mean, that's what Clair Obscur is about, recognising the need for darkness to contrast the light. But we also generally see darkness as something to be pushed aside. I think at this time of the year, that's really interesting because we have lights everywhere. We have all the Christmas lights in our streets, and we're putting up fairy lights everywhere. And there's this big focus on bringing in the light into the homes. And I think all these games do that and pick up on that theme. Have you got any examples of games that use light or darkness as a metaphor for things like hope, safety, and revelation? I mean, Matt and I have just recently been playing Little Nightmares 2, and we got given flashlights. You can walk through and see the world in one way, and then you turn the flashlight on and you're exposed to a whole different set of horrors. Sometimes it's not better to see what's on the mantelpiece or in the fireplace. Sometimes shining a light isn't always the right thing to be doing.
Two for me that stand out are quite similar. They're made by the same sort of developers and stuff. So there's Abzu and Sword of the Sea, which is the most recent one by Giant Squid. And the kind of goal of those games is to get to different environmental areas and unlock the sea creatures. There's still sea creatures in the sea, but it's like a mixture of the environments of Journey and Abzu. So there's loads of sand around in the sea, but there's also patches of water and trails of fish that you can follow and various sea creatures. But yeah, it's about bringing life back to empty or harsh or dead environments. So I think that's definitely some metaphors at play there. And getting back, it's very much a nature, environmental message going on. It's about protecting the nature around us and making sure that it can flourish. And I definitely think that's the general vibe of those sorts of games.
Yeah. I played Abzu a little bit, but I'm just wondering, because obviously you're in the ocean, how is it lit? Are you there with your torch?
It's generally quite light. I mean, it depends on different... You do have little head torches. The different environments, you've got definite sort of colour. It's very, very colour heavy. So you start off in bright blue, and then you get through to pinky, like coral, like the coral that you see in Australia, the reefs and stuff. Those, and then you get into a slightly more rusty environment with the manatees, which is my favourite bit, because I love manatees. Everything's rusted and coppery brown. The water changes to a greeny colour. And then there's lots more green. Eventually you get through to darker blues and greens, and then very dark blue where the fish kind of have neon lights and you can barely see anything. It's like a big thick fog toward the end of the game. Like the very deep, dark ocean. You know, there's nature documentaries where you go down far enough you can't see anything because the light from the sun doesn't make it down that far. It's a bit like that from the ocean. So yeah, that's a really interesting one. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, there's definitely one that plays with light in a similar way.
So do you feel vulnerable in that situation when it's dark and you're in the...
I definitely
I would, because I'm a bit scared about dark water, but I don't...
There were lots of factors that led to the scary feelings. There were these weird triangle-shaped mines that would start bleeping the closer you got to them, and then they would kind of explode. So you had to avoid them and kind of weave between them. So those added a bit of tension. The music had changed tone. Music also had a lot to do with the vibe of the environment as well. Again, composed by the wonderful Austin Wintry. So definitely marks from me there. But yeah, and then there was this shark that you were following all the way through, who turns out to be quite misunderstood. You initially think he is evil, but it turns out he is just misunderstood, and you have to help him out a little bit. And then it gets a bit sad when he is in it, and you're like, oh, actually, he wasn't so bad, and now I feel sad. That's quite an interesting arc, trying to tell you not to judge the darker creatures of the ocean as harshly as you might. The tension definitely ratchets up in the darker, more dense environments, definitely.
That's interesting. I'm just wondering, Matt, whether you can think of any examples where the dark equals bad, dark equals evil trope is actually flipped in any games.
We were talking in our last death episode about problem with the therapy generation of in-game developers poorly representing them. A villain is just someone who's been hurt, and that only hurt people hurt people. In movies, every character who's meant to be an anti-hero is just a hero now. It's very boring, and it's very uncompelling when you go, oh, the bad guy's a good person who's just been hurt, and we just need to solve the source of his trauma and then everything will be okay. No! Give me a bad guy, someone who scares me. If you want to show me something in their past that you can identify with, that's good, that's fine. But making them so they're not bad by the end is just dull. And masquerading as depth and intensity. Somewhere that does it really well is in God of War 2018 with Boulder. Because Boulder is this terrifying force of nature all throughout. And then they end up in hell because of Atreus being a dickhead. And you find Boulder and you are sneaking past him. Boulder is watching a shadow memory of him and his mother just after his mother had cast the spell on him that means that he can't feel anything. It's just a devastating scene. Really awful, and you understand everything that he does and what he's going through. But that doesn't make him a good guy. It doesn't absolve him of what he's done. It just, the damage forged him into this. But he's still the villain. He still has the same drives that he has. It's okay to be twisted into something by negative experiences. But in order for it to be scary, they own this experience of where they are now, rather than being a slave to it. When it's done well, you can have that, because everyone has a light and a dark side. When you do it ham-fistedly, then it ceases to be as powerful.
What about games like in Hitman? Do you rely on darkness to hide you? I've played games in the past where you want to stay in the shadows and sneak about, and you're looking for those places where there isn't light. In Little Nightmares, there's a couple of moments where when the light shines on you, you die. So it's about sticking to the shadows and not getting caught in the light.
I love a good stealth game. You go to an enemy area and then you take them out one by one without anyone noticing anything, and then you move on. I love that kind of gameplay.
One of my favourite games that I ever played was Thief. It was excellent. The whole point of the game was that you couldn't run into any situation guns blazing. You had to sneak about, and it required real thinking and planning and all those decisions, and just, yeah, really, really fun game to play. The first one, certainly. Alex, you were talking earlier about contradictory feelings when you were playing a game that was rainy and dark and it's the middle of the summer and that kind of, should I be playing this game now? I want to talk a bit about games in seasons and seasonal games, but before I move on to that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about games that have daily cycles. So I've mentioned that Daniel and I were recently playing Valheim, which is a survival game, and at night you get a massive increase in wandering monsters. Certain monsters only come out at night, and it's a lot harder to see. It's also colder at night, so it reduces your stamina regen and your health regen. There's quite a lot of things that happen at night to make it harder to play. So it would be a time when you would go back to base, light a fire and hide out somewhere. And it also became a time when we would do all our practical stuff like planting seeds or repairing our weapons or making food and all of the sort of practical things that you need to do in the game for day-to-day adventuring. Have you guys played any games that have a heavy reliance on the day-night cycle? Or
Dying Light is when you're running through the streets in the day, you're fine, but then at night, if one of them sees you, then that's it. And there's something to be said about games set in post-apocalyptic. People don't realise how dark things get when you're not in a city, when there are literally no artificial lights anywhere. Games can really up tension by doing that as well.
Yeah, I've not played a game where things change at night to the extent that you've both described. I've played a lot of games where there's a day-night cycle. The sky looks really pretty with all the stars and some northern lights effects and stuff. And sometimes the NPCs have their own sort of day-night cycles where in the day they'd be working at their shop and then at night they go and sleep in their home. And you could follow one of them day and night and watch them go do their daily routine. It's immersive, but not impacting the gameplay and the strategy quite as much as you talk about. And I think I'd definitely be interested in trying out a game like that, just to see how you would manage your time and resources and protect your character.
one of the games that I found the most atmospheric was Neverwinter Nights, and because it was all sort of wintry. I don't like to watch like movies that are set in winter or have Christmas themes in the summer. It feels completely alien and weird to me, so I don't like to do that. Have you played any games that stand out to you for the sort of seasonal experience?
The games I would get as presents at Christmas over time, if they're particularly good games and they stick with me, I associate those games with that time of year because that's when I played them with fresh eyes. They become associated with a season, whether they mean to or not, through my experience of experiencing for the first time and the environment around me during that time.
Yeah.
It's definitely the impact of the season around me more than the season of the game.
I think we're coming to the end of our time, so I just wanted to ask you one last question. As we're coming up to a new year, if you had to choose a game that captures the feeling of renewal and a fresh start and all of the things that come with that, which game would you recommend?
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
One I just thought of is a little indie game called Toem. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it came out on PlayStation Plus a little while ago. It's all in black and white, and you play some kind of creature. The goal of the game is to go around and take photographs of everything and make a record of it. You're moving away from home for the first time, going out into the big city and exploring around and meeting. So I guess in that sense, it's like a clean slate, and all the photos you take are mapping your journey on that experience of leaving home. So I guess that gives sort of the vibes of starting something new and starting freshly. Maybe like kind of similar to going off to university and Freshers Week, except with a lot less drinking and a lot more photos and whimsy. But yeah, it's a fun little indie game, definitely.
Yeah. I do love the seasonal stuff that you have in games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley, and I'm playing Coral Island as well, and that's basically a Stardew Valley ripoff. They have seasons in that as well, and they've got some amazing Christmas decorations in the Coral Island one, and it does make me feel all festive no matter what the time of year is. So yeah, I think it's quite nice when games have that sort of seasonal turning of the seasons, and that I think is
it
fun.
even happened in GTA. I remember when I was dabbling in GTA Online. I think it was Christmas, during the Christmas week, it was snowing in the which was interesting. I definitely do think about the seasons.
World of Warcraft used to always do seasonal events, and Christmas was always the best. They had different sets of outfits and games you could play, all in theme. It was a fun way to enjoy seasonal events with online friends.
Yeah.
And I think that was always really fun. And that, as I said, they did all the things. So they'd have Easter stuff and Festival of Light and lots of different world celebrations, which was always a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate having a little chat about light and dark as we approach the longest night, shortest day. Take a little bit of time to find the light and find the positive wherever you are. I know we've got more interesting things to talk about, so yeah.
We have lots in the pipeline, yes, so very exciting.
Do check us out, and we release every Thursday, possibly not next Thursday because it's Christmas Day. So anyway, we'll see you in 2026. Exciting.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.